body is under free fall, if it's dropped from an altitude and allowed to move under the influence of its own weight, under the influence of its own weight. The funny thing is that when bodies are dropped, they will all be attracted towards the Earth's surface. They will all move with the same acceleration. And this means that if bodies of different masses are dropped from a given altitude, they will all fall at the same rate and they will reach the ground at the same time. However, practically, it may not come out due to other factors. For example, if you were to drop bodies of different dimensions, due to air resistance, due to upthrust, these bodies may fail to reach the ground at the same time. However, if they were dropped in a vacuum, they would all travel the same distance in the same time, and they would land on the ground at the same time. So all bodies would be accelerating at the same acceleration due to gravity. In order to handle these challenges, we shall be using the equations of uniformly accelerated motion. So in the previous lesson, we looked at the three equations. So we shall also be using the same equations when it comes to the calculations. So what you have to note are attracted towards center, and they will all move with the same acceleration, with the same acceleration g, i.e. g equals 9.81. Or for a body close to the Earth's surface. So bodies will all be attracted and they will fall with the same acceleration, and that is the acceleration due to gravity. This value of g approximates to 9.81 if bodies are close to the Earth's surface. However, as you move away from the Earth's surface, the value of g changes. But for simplicity, we shall be looking at bodies dropped close to the Earth's surface. So the equations that shall be used in calculating the various parameters, they are going to be the same as those equations of uniformly accelerated motion. To calculate the various parameters, we use the equations of uniformly accelerated motion. So let's look at example. The velocity with which it hits the ground. So this is going to be our first example. A body is dropped from an altitude. When we talk of an altitude, it's going to be the distance measured from the Earth's surface for a body. So a body is dropped from an altitude of 120 meters. Calculate Roman 1, the time taken to land on the ground. Roman 2, the velocity with which it hits the ground. So whenever you are given a question, you have to first read through and understand it properly. So in this case, if a body is dropped from an altitude, it means that its initial velocity is 0. So you shall write the information given. U is equal to 0. H is equal to 120 meters. So that is the information given. Now the question requires to calculate. You want us to calculate Roman 1, the time, I can call it maybe T1, and Roman 2, the velocity V is also required. Now from the equations of motion, so from V equals U plus AT, now we are going to substitute the value of A to be that due to gravity. Therefore, this equation will now become V equals U plus GT. Likewise, the other equations, the second equation will become S is equal to UT plus a half GT squared. And lastly, the third one, it will become V squared equals U squared plus 2GS. Now, these are the equations that we are going to use. The question will dictate which equation to use. So, in the first case, we want to find the time. We are given the initial velocity and also the height. Therefore, the equation which we are going to use in this case is going to be the second equation. So, using the second equation, using equation 2, we want to find the time. We shall have AC, we shall take it as 120. Our initial U was a 0, so 0 times T will get a 0 plus a half times 9.81 T squared. Since we are now looking for T, we are going to make our T the subject. So when you cross multiply, we shall get 120 times a 2 is equal to 9.81 T squared. So T1 is equal to the square root of 24.46. So T1 is equal to root 4.95 seconds. So that will be the time taken by that body to drop through a height. Calculate the velocity with which that body will hit the ground. So you have to think of an equation which has velocity in it. Now, when you look at our three equations, the first one and the second and the third can all be used to calculate the final velocity. However, if we are to use the first one, then the time which we shall substitute will be the time we've got here. However, if the time you've got here is wrong, then the chances are that even Roman 2 is wrong. So I'm going to use the third equation so that I will rely on the value of s that was given, because that one I'm 100% sure that it's correct. So from the third, equal to u squared plus 2gs. So when the body hits the ground, you have v squared. This is a 9.81 times, we have covered that distance. 100 is equal to 2 times 9.81 times 120. So this is 23. 54.4. From there, the square root of 23, 54.4. So we shall get out the 0.5 meters per second. So that is the velocity with which the body will hit the ground. The body is dropped from the top of a building. The body passes past a window of height 6 meters in 0.2 seconds. Calculate Roman 1. The height of the building above the window. Roman 2. The velocity the body moves with at the instant of reaching the window. From the top of a building, the body passes past a window of height 6 meters in 0.2 seconds. Calculate Roman 1, the height of the building above the window. Roman 2, the velocity the body moves with at the instant of reaching the window. So that is our second example. So after reading through the question, you come up with our building. And maybe this is our window. We are told that the width or the height of the window in this case is given to be 60 meters. So the body is dropped from the top of the building. So this body, it will not refuse, it will definitely fall. So at this instant here, I'm going to assume that it will be moving with velocity v1, and then after passing the window, it will have attained the velocity v2. So this is the direction in which the body is falling. And now the question requires us to obtain the height above the window. So the question requires us to find the value of h. So physics may be somehow interesting just by measuring the speed with which the body passes the window, and also knowing the distance and the time taken, you can use that information to calculate the height above, meaning that there is no need of us to use maybe a depth measure at that instant to obtain the height. However, this requires you to use equation and time taken. So we are going now to form two equations having the given information. So I'm going to call this level A, I'm going to call this level B. So consider the body at A. So the equation which I'm going to use, so from plus a half gt squared. So if the body takes time t2, if the body takes time t1 to follow through distance h as shown in the figure, then we shall say, or we shall have h. Remember, it was just dropped. This here is a 0. H equals a half g t1 squared. So I'm going to call that my first equation. So consider the body at level B. So consider